Hey there, and welcome to Let's Talk Personal. I am your host, as always, Frances Reimers. Thank you for joining us. It is a beautiful day in the nation's capital, so I totally understand if you're watching this on your laptop outside on your patio. But do listen in. This is going to be a great show. If you would like to talk to us, you can go ahead and do so on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio. You can also do so on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. If you'd like to talk personally to me, and a lot of you do, you can do so on Instagram at Your Firestarter and on, Twitter at Your Firestarter and Instagram at Firestarter CEO. If you tweet at us or Instagram at us during the show, I promise to try to answer, but I don't guarantee. So I will answer you after the show if need be. So let's get down to brass tacks. This is going to be a very interesting show. I know we have a lot of people tuning in from all over the place that have been very interested in this particular topic. So with me today, I have Stephen Anthony, who is the managing partner of Global Sports Management and also a partner of My Firestarter. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, we're so excited to be here because this is the hottest of hot topics right now. Athletes, their brand, how they manage their brand,
Absolutely.
and you deal with this every single day. But I want to talk about you first before we talk about them. So you are the reason that we're here. So you are a finance guy, so a very kind of unlikely person to be managing a sports agency. So tell us a little bit about how you got from point A to point B.
Sure. No, absolutely. It's that's a funny question. It happens all the time, right? So I'm a finance guy who, for 16 years, that's been my job.
Right.
So it's interesting that literally when the opportunity presented itself to own a sports agency, I would tell most people there's no way.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to own a sports agency. But what I realized was that after having conversations with a lot of different athletes, especially those who competed internationally, they were all telling us the same thing. They were saying these same horror stories about what they were experiencing, some of the things they were going through, whether it was coaches, whether it was agents, whether it was teams, whatever the case may be. And I was like, wow, okay, why is it that these guys and gals can't get the same treatment as, the folks that play here domestically?
Right.
And so for me, it was literally a shot in the dark that said, hey, let's see if I can generate some interest for these folks and build resources around them.
Right.
And I generated a following.
Right.
And so I told my partner, I was like, you know what? Now I actually got to create a business around this.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really how
You
it got
talk
started.
the talk, now you have to walk the walk.
Absolutely.
Right.
100%.
And who approached you about actually starting the agency? Was it organic out of these conversations you were having, or did someone already have a business and you acquired it? Like, how did that happen?
It was organic. It actually was created by the idea of the conversations I was having with an insurance agency.
Okay.
And the insurance company is a large international insurance company.
Right.
They typically handle expats who are sending folks abroad to go work somewhere else, and they offer insurance. And so I said, why not athletes? Why not athletes who play outside their home countries?
Right.
Do we provide that service?
Right.
And they said, no, let me get back to you. And they came back, and literally they said, Stephen, our underwriters love the idea.
Right.
And I said, excuse me, so that means I have to create a company?
Right. Should not opened your
I
mouth.
should not have opened my mouth.
Right.
So I got to create a business now.
Right.
And that's exactly how Global Sports got started.
And your current partner is?
Gil Moody.
And how did you meet Gil, and how did he get involved in this?
So it's interesting because actually while I was having these conversations with the insurance company, Gil was actually training me. So he owns his own training and fitness company. And he was actually training me at the time. And so we're having these conversations while I'm being trained, while he's kicking my butt in the gym.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, I know players that are going through the same thing, man. I know I've trained a lot of them. They're dealing with the same issues.
Right.
Hey, you onto something.
Right.
And literally had to bring him on board, solely based on the fact that he had a lot of guys that he knew, his background in training and fitness. So it was just something that absolutely just kind of brought us both together.
Right. And you guys offer more than just financial services and insurance. Talk a little bit about the kind of holistic resources that you provide to these young men and women.
Absolutely. Well, definitely our whole goal is really to put all the resources around these athletes to help them be successful. So whether it's, international tax attorney services, whether it's visas, whether it's, they need help with financial services, whatever the case may be,
Right.
whether they need help with brand management,
Right.
all those things, those are the aspects that we look at, because we tell the athletes, look at yourself as a CEO.
Right.
You're the CEO of your own company, and you need to have this array of services around you so that ultimately you go out there and maximize your income.
Right.
Not just on the court or on the field, but off of it as well.
Right. And one of the services that you offer is kind of assimilation services, so that when they go overseas, which is something that I think is very unique, when these players go overseas, they actually have services where they can sit down with somebody and learn about the culture so that they are more integrated into wherever it is they're going, which from a brand aspect, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but this becomes vital, because if you can assimilate yourself
Absolutely.
to your surrounding, it endears you more to fans. Was that something that organically came about, or did someone approach you? Because that's a very kind of unique differentiator amongst your agency as opposed to others.
Absolutely. I think it was something that was organic, in the sense that, I always pride myself on thinking outside the box.
Right.
And so it's a matter of, okay, here's an opportunity. What is it that these folks will need, so that not only when they get to a different place can they play well,
Right.
but also how do they make themselves more marketable?
Right.
And so being able to assimilate in the area in which they're in, that helps make them more marketable to the folks that they're working with. And so, when we're building that fan base, in Spain or Portugal or Brazil,
Japan or wherever.
however the case may be, it works with those athletes that actually know how to navigate that area.
Right.
And so it was one of those things where we literally was able to touch base with someone who had a great assessment program, and then we're able to actually assess what works for these athletes and what doesn't.
Right.
And with that, we're able to say, okay, look, this is where you're weak, and these are the things that you need to be strong at when
Right.
dealing with different cultures.
Right. Because it's not intuitive. Some
Absolutely.
cultures are intuitive because we see it on TV. It's part of our culture as Americans, but some are not.
Yes.
And understanding those finite differences, it can mean a huge difference between your brand growing or failing in
Definitely.
that country. It's too important.
Absolutely. Don't wear your headphones in the Middle East. If I could tell you
Okay.
that. Don't
Noted.
do that.
Noted.
Don't do that. Don't walk while you're walking down the street. Don't wear your headphones.
Okay, they
So,
take that as a huge insult, apparently.
sign of disrespect.
Okay, interesting.
So we
Didn't know
learned that
that.
the hard way.
Ooh, okay. Ooh, yikes. And this is not the time to be having things like that happen in the
Yeah,
Middle East.
absolutely not.
Not.
Absolutely not.
But this agency, the sports agency, is not your only business. Talk
Right.
about the other kind of suite of for-profit and nonprofit things you have going on.
Absolutely. So I own a holding company, which is Anthony Global Holdings. And the holding company generally is really an array of different businesses in different industries. A couple of them are commercial finance companies, real estate, commercial real estate, both, and residential investment real estate. And then also we have the AGH Foundation, which we actually really focus on giving back to community in 3 different ways, which is the arts, education, and social empowerment.
And why did you decide to start a foundation? What was the reason for that?
My biggest motivation around it was based on my own upbringing.
Okay.
And so, I came from a situation where, folks didn't always sort of see the potential.
Right.
And so with that being the case, I wanted to make sure that others could definitely have access.
Right.
And have access to things that maybe I didn't have growing up.
Right.
And so understanding that the arts and education are very important,
Right.
as well as the social empowerment aspect, and making sure that people really understand and are valued, whatever community you're from.
Right.
And so those were really some of the things that I didn't see myself growing up, and I
Right.
wanted to make sure that I was able to give back once I obtained a certain level of success.
And are these funds distributed nationwide? Is it just in the DC area where
Absolutely
Oh.
nationwide.
Okay.
Nationwide. So yeah, there's certain programs that are going to be set for different areas, particularly my own home state of Kansas.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely, we focus in every area that there may be a need.
And where do people find out information about that?
You can certainly go to agholdingsinc.com. You can find out more information about the holding company, as well as there's a link there to the AGH Foundation.
Great. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So moving away from what you own to who you are, you have a very kind of interesting brand, not atypical to somebody who has multiple holdings, but you tend to keep pretty under the radar. So talk a little bit about the creation of your brand and the evolution of your brand, and why you've made particular brand decisions throughout your career.
Yeah, so I think anybody that knows me, Francis, unfortunately, I think they'll realize that even doing this interview is probably out of my character.
It's painful.
It is. You can see it on my face.
Yes.
So it's, but it's one of those things where I've always kind of really set myself on really just kind of focusing on what I have to get done.
Right.
And never really paid a whole lot of attention to the branding aspect.
Right.
Until more recently,
Right.
where I understand how important that is.
Yes.
And understanding exactly, people follow that. They do
Right.
they follow brands, they follow people. More than follow a service or a product.
Right.
And so it's important that they understand the why behind something.
Right.
And understanding that going forward, I realized, okay, I need to help people understand the why. Why do I create the things that I do as an entrepreneur?
Right.
And in doing so, I realized, okay, I actually need to be in front a little bit more than I probably would like.
Right.
So I have LinkedIn, but that's probably the extent of my
Good for you.
social media.
Good for you. Well, we will hold that thought. We're going to take a break, and when we get back, we're actually going to talk about his lack of social media and how that has benefited or hurt him. So stay right there. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Thanks for joining us to Let's Talk Personal. I'm again your host, Francis Reimers. With me is Stephen Anthony. If you would like to talk to us on social media, please do so on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio and on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. And speaking of social media, before the break, we alluded to your severe lack of social media. In fact, over the break, we were talking about Boomerang, and his response was, "What's that?" I mean, it's hard. So this has obviously been a very strategic decision because you are not old, so you can't say you're old and you don't understand technology. You're not old. You're surrounded by very young staff every single day. So this has clearly been a mindful decision. How has it helped you, hurt you, not an impact at all? Tell me about it.
Wow. You're just gonna throw it right at me.
Yeah,
like that, right?
yeah, that's my job. It's my show.
I think, honestly, I think I really didn't realize the impact that it had until probably within the last few years.
Okay.
I literally just got LinkedIn maybe a couple years ago. So
Right.
I didn't know, the extent that people really would do their research there to really kind of learn a lot more about you, and so forth. I'm old school. So,
Right.
if you want to talk to somebody, you pick up the phone.
Right.
So
Or you go to a networking
or
event
you go to a
and you talk
networking
to them in
event
person.
absolutely,
Right.
100%. So
Yeah.
that's the way that I've always done things.
Right.
And you said I'm not old, but I have an old soul in that way.
Right.
But it's and then with everything else, I've always kind of felt that you have to keep certain aspects of your life private.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can certainly understand the need from a professional standpoint to sort of expand, your horizons in a bit.
Right.
Which is why I did LinkedIn, and I think I'm super proud of it.
I'm on LinkedIn and I'm super proud.
And my interns did a fantastic job with Global Sports IG, so
Yeah.
I'm feeling great about that.
Do
I
you
learned a
ever
lot.
go on those accounts yourself
I do.
and post things and manage? I know you do because I've
Occasionally.
seen things that you've posted. So
I have.
So you do
occasionally.
feel comfortable on those.
I wouldn't say comfortable.
Okay.
I'd say out of necessity.
Operational.
Absolutely.
Right.
If
You know enough to be dangerous.
if I have to do it, I'll do it.
Okay.
If I have to do it, I'll do it. I'd rather for someone else to, but I'll certainly throw my head in the ring if I need to.
And have you ever had any situation where your lack of social media has hurt you in any sort of way?
If it has, it's been behind my back.
Right.
So no one's come directly to my face and told me.
Right.
That
I would say the lack of interviews you do as a CEO would be a drawback of
that may be.
Right.
You're absolutely right. I'm sure that
Just
probably
saying.
has something to do with that.
Right. Probably. And we were talking offline during the break is that I was sharing with Steven that a lot of times I've had people contact me who have looked at every single one of my social media platforms before picking up the phone and calling me. So they've made up their mind about who I am and the services I provide before they even call. So the old school sales tap dance is not necessary because they've already made up their mind and they're ready to move forward in one way or another. And so it's really, we kind of live in a world now where your online presence, whether it's interviews like this that are out on the internet or your social media channels, they're actually telling the narrative of who you are.
Absolutely.
Without you,
Yes.
literally without you. And
That
so
is true.
all the more reason it's so important to manage that stuff very tightly.
Yes, which is why I absolutely love the idea for Firestarter to work with our athletes.
Well,
Not necessarily me, but our athletes, definitely.
Yeah, you're just going to keep it under the radar for as long as humanly possible.
If
You're
I can.
I don't want to be seen. I'm not going out there. It's fine. Drag your feet into the next century. Just keep dragging those
I'm
feet.
working on it.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Do what you want to do. But you do own a company that is growing.
Yes.
A company that, by its very nature, works predominantly with people in their late teens to mid 20s
True.
at the most, maybe a little bit older, but that's the age range we're dealing with here.
Very true.
And everything they do is social media driven.
Tell me about it.
And so, as a company,
Yeah.
your strategic plan around your social media has to be pretty lit. And so what are you guys doing at Global Sports to make sure you're getting the biggest bang for your social media buck, especially when your key audience
Absolutely.
is an all social media generation?
Yeah, so I think that was probably our first priority.
Right.
When we sort of decided, okay, now here's an opportunity to go out there and actually market ourselves.
Right.
And it was really, we actually brought on a group of interns, which they did a fantastic job in the summer, to actually manage that.
Right.
And so it was a multitude of different ways. We established both the Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and whatever else is out there. Snapchat. I think we had Snapchat for the launch.
Don't need Snapchat.
But
I hate Snapchat. Snapchat sucks. Yeah, go ahead.
But it was strategic in the way that we actually sat down and determined where could we get the best bang for our buck.
Right.
Which of these different platforms would actually allow us to sort of generate the best buzz.
Right.
And for us, it naturally kind of turned into Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
Where we just kind of had a following that just sort of attracted really quickly.
Yes.
But outside of that, I mean, it's literally, we had to set that as part of our marketing strategy.
Right.
So, I
Absolutely.
mean, there was a point where your marketing strategy was let me get on television, let me get on, all these other forms of media.
Right.
But social media, the digital form is absolutely first and foremost. So you have to put that in your strategy.
Well, and for your target audience, which are, 18 to 25-year-olds, getting on television is not a good use of your resources.
Absolutely.
Billboards, print media,
Makes
that
no
kind of
sense.
thing, no use. Now, for you as a CEO, good use of resources because that's where your peers are. So it's a two-pronged situation there. I can tell them about it. It's a two-pronged situation there, but yeah, traditional media is challenging when that's the key demographic. But I always tell clients, they're like, we don't want to be on Facebook. I'm like, you have to. Like, I mean, Facebook has done, Mark Zuckerberg is a genius. He has done a phenomenal job
He
of
is.
something that was on the decline and literally righting
crazy.
the ship and making it relevant and a necessity for
Right.
business owners. Like,
Insane.
you have to be there.
Yeah.
We're Facebook Live right now across the world.
That's
and
good to know.
It's such a you're like, I didn't know. It's such a key aspect of business and connecting. And it used to be that millennials and Gen Z were running away from Facebook because their parents and their grandparents are there.
That's true.
That ship is turning as well. They're going back because of the functionality of Facebook is
interesting.
changing things. And the advertising capabilities on Facebook of being able to
That is big.
replicate audiences and do different kinds of
We've
things. with
taken advantage
advertising.
of it too.
Yeah, that's the thing is
Yeah.
when you can mirror and replicate audiences over and over and over, it's more money for it's more bang for your advertising
Absolutely.
buck. And Instagram, it's nice because Instagram is in bed with Facebook, so
Yes.
it's a platform that goes across the way. But Instagram is my number one lead generator. 90% of my sales leads come through Instagram because if you're managing your brand effectively, your Instagram should look like a narrative of your life. It should look like somebody is reading a book about your life or the mission of your business.
Absolutely.
And so when people look through that, they feel like they know me, and thus they email or pick up the phone.
So that's how Gil found you.
Yeah, I think that's how Gil found me. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure. I mean, we're definitely Instagram friends, and he likes every single thing I post, like a creeper. So, yeah, we definitely know each other through that. But I'm not sure if that's how he found me. I think it's,
Yeah,
it could be.
it could be.
It could be. I mean,
Could be.
it's my favorite platform. I
Yeah.
could be on Instagram all day, every day. It's one of the greatest things of all time. Okay, we're going to take another break here in a second and refresh. And when we come back, we're actually going to start talking about aspiring athletes and their brand and what they as an agency are doing to combat these needs and address them. And so stand by. We'll be right back. And we're back. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to all of you at home, Lindsay and Pamela, for texting me and letting me know that you're enjoying the show. I appreciate your support. So before the break, we were talking a little bit about various social media platforms, and we've alluded to a little bit at the top of the show about aspiring athletes and their brands. This is obviously a huge topic of my life. It's a huge topic of your life. And it's becoming more and more and more of a topic starting earlier and earlier and earlier in a athlete's career. I've actually had parents reach out to me of whose child was in junior high.
Wow.
And they wanted to start formulating their child's brand.
Were they a soccer player?
No,
Okay.
they were football.
All
they were
right, that's
football,
fine.
and I'm like, really? You don't even know. He hasn't even hit his growth spurt yet. You don't even know if he's gonna make like the senior squad. How about you dial it back? Hey, if you want to pay me, I'm gonna let you pay me. But I think it's
go for it.
a bit. But baseball. They get them early in baseball, and so
Send those over.
Right. Yes. One kid is with the Baltimore Orioles now,
Wow.
and I mean,
That's
he's
fantastic.
19, and
That's
his
great that he's
parents
thinking
reached
about
out to me before he even went pro
Wow.
to talk about his brand. So I
That's
mean,
awesome.
this is something that's happening early, and for good reason. And so let's talk a little bit about that. You're managing young men and women who are literally all around the globe. It's not like you
Yeah.
just have them right down the street and can keep them
I know.
under your thumb. They are literally around the globe.
Yes.
So what is the biggest challenge that you're facing when it comes to the people you represent in their brand?
I think that's probably the biggest challenge, honestly, is
that
the fact that they're all over.
over,
So
right.
you can't. You try to do it in a more controlled way,
Right.
as best as possible.
Right.
But if someone's in Japan,
Right.
I'm not going to know a whole lot about what they may or may not be doing.
Right.
At least they don't think I am.
Right.
But it's one of those things that can be challenging,
Right.
right? So we don't really get a chance to mold and control what's out there, what they put out there until after the fact. So
Right.
it's more reactive.
Right.
But overall, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I've seen. Just kind of managing, athletes' brands, especially when they're in different locations.
Right. So thinking of the people that you plan to represent, there's a dance that goes on leading up to them actually signing that contract. Dance on your side, dance on their side. Does their brand play a role in whether you will represent them or not? And have there been instances where somebody's brand made you go, we want that commission, but we're gonna roll?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's one of those things that I think and I tell my staff all the time, it's something we call the GSM standard.
Right.
And so, that's really dealing with brand.
Right.
And so if we're saying, okay, each club, you're going to know exactly what type of person you're going to get.
Right.
That's dealing with their overall brand. And so for us, especially being a newer company, we can't take certain types of risk early on
Right.
with brands and bringing in certain individuals who may have had some challenges
Right.
in the past.
Right.
So we have to be careful of that. And we've had, some situations where there have been some athletes who have come to us and who were ready to sign, ready to
Right.
be on board
Right.
with GSM. And unfortunately, there were some things that, that were in their past that, from the brand standpoint, they didn't get a chance to really clear up.
Right.
And we just couldn't take that risk.
Right.
Fantastic athlete.
Right.
But we couldn't take that risk initially. So I think those are some of the main things that we absolutely have to pay attention to.
Right.
When we're deciding whether or not for an athlete to join us and then vice versa. Those athletes that certainly have had that idea of like, okay, I really want to expand my brand.
Mm-hmm.
We're that first company that said, this is what you should be doing.
Right.
This is where you need to be focused.
Right.
Other agencies may not be focused so heavily on that. They may
Right.
be focused on you getting a playing contract and that's it.
Right.
And so we're like, hey, this is how you're going to make money after.
Right.
This is how you're going to make your money last. And so there's a reason why we partner up with fantastic partners in brand management, so that we can absolutely
can.
provide the best services to
Right.
our athletes and making sure that that's strong for them.
Right. So for somebody who is wanting representation, and you and I both know tons of young men and women out there, I get calls all the time because people think I'm an agent, asking if I'll represent them. I'm like, I'll represent your brand. let me pass you over to these people over here who deal with contracts. But for people like you and me who are out there, we see these kids and these kids come to us. What kind of brand are you looking for? If you had a prototypical young man or young woman, what does their brand look like? What does their social media activity look like?
That's a really good question.
That's what I do. I ask the good questions.
You really do. That's I think it's varied, right? So I
Right.
think it's not a one-tier situation. We sort of
Right.
look at each person's brand on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
And it won't be cookie cutter. We have, athletes who certainly have a certain look about them. There's a certain way that they've sort of built a following.
Right.
And they're great athletes,
Right.
but their following may be based on a look.
Right.
And so we have athletes like that on our
Right.
roster. But then we have other athletes who appeal to a different demographic. They appeal to a different group.
Right.
And so we also kind of pump that up and say, okay,
Right.
you need to really extend that. You really need to really kind of show people this is who you are. This is, and there's no problem with that.
Right.
You don't appeal to this group, but you have a huge group of followers on this end, and we see that through your social media.
Right.
So I mean, there's certain ways, and we look on a case by case basis on, okay, how do we really extend the brand for each particular athlete?
Right. And right now, what's hot in the news across all sports is athletes, voicing their opinion on social injustice, inequality, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
What is your organization's stance on athletes speaking out, voicing their direct opinion about these hot button issues?
No, we're absolutely behind it. We're 100% behind our athletes if they want to, certainly voice their opinions. We're not going to put a muzzle on them,
Right.
And so to speak. And so it's a part of actually showing that individualism.
Right.
But we also are part of understanding that there are going to be repercussions for that.
Right.
So understand that even if you want to take that stand,
Right.
that there may be a group of fans that you may have alienated at this point now.
Right.
So as long as they understand that there's going to be a give and take situation to it,
Right.
absolutely. We 100% encourage, for them to take a stand and certainly go behind things that you believe in.
Right. And the NBA actually, I think it was early last week, issued a statement from the Players Association to all of the teams. Adam Silver and Michelle Roberts basically did a joint statement. If you saw that, the NBA is literally like, hey, we know that you want to be involved in these social issues and we support you. And if you want to talk about these things publicly, we will assist you. How they're going to assist is a little bit of, I have a huge question mark around that. But I do think I think it's a good step in the right direction, and it's
Definitely.
not surprising to me that the NBA
Right.
of all of the major sport
Absolutely.
leagues have taken this stance. And it'll be interesting to see in this coming season that's starting to
Yeah.
ramp up here soon, how that's going to unfold.
Absolutely.
Are guys really going to take that statement from Silver to heart and really go out there, because you do have to be careful of the audience.
Absolutely.
You have to be careful. I
100%.
mean, and all kinds of people watch
Yes.
basketball: white people, black people, rich people, poor people.
They all.
And I give kudos to the NBA for putting it out there and giving the players the freedom to speak out. But it'll be interesting to see over this year
they manage that.
how many manage that effectively,
Yes.
and what kind of blowback comes to their brand.
Yeah, that could be a huge boost for your business.
It's a huge, I'm hoping. So I'm talking to the Denver Nuggets here in a couple of weeks, and that's a big part of my presentation is, okay, go on with your bad self. Talk about your social issues.
Yep.
Are you prepared for the repercussion?
Yes.
Because this person over here might not be okay with your
Right.
stance, but they're still buying tickets.
Yes.
And now they feel entitled
Yep.
to tell you that they don't appreciate your stance.
Absolutely.
And so it'll be interesting, and I think this is only going to grow.
Yes.
I think this is going to grow across.
Yes.
I don't think that NFL will ever pick this up because they
Probably
tend to
not.
like to stay away from these things. But I think this is going to continue to grow, and I think this is something that's going to trickle down into the international leagues and that sort of
100%.
thing. And when you have players overseas in somebody else's country and they're talking
Yes.
about American political issues, that can get a little contentious.
It can.
And
It can.
need to be prepared for that.
100%. 100%. And we're always staying in front of certain things that we see, stay in front
Right.
of the current events and things that are out there from a professional sense. And even when we, certainly heard of the situation with a Lithuanian coach who spoke about their athletes and
Right.
actually the team owner that spoke about their athletes and so forth. And some of our athletes that actually had played in Lithuania were concerned. They
Right.
were like, wow, okay, we didn't know they felt that way.
What? So go into. I didn't hear about this. What happened?
So there was a Lithuanian team owner who actually mentioned the fact that he said that that a coach was only attracting, they were only bringing on African American players.
Okay.
And he really wanted them to slow down the amount of African American players that they were bringing on, because it wasn't the type of system that he wanted to run.
Okay.
With playing system wise.
Right.
So
this is why you wanted short white guys. Like, was that his
yeah,
jam?
I guess that's how it works. But and that's his prerogative as a team.
Absolutely.
So I get it. But at the same time, if there are athletes that are going to help your team get to the next level,
right?
Then they'll probably be a little turned off by that statement.
Right.
And so some of our athletes had some concerns about that, and they certainly reached out and wanted to kind of see. What should we do? There's certain things I want to put out there,
right,
in regards to those types of statements.
Right.
And I said, well, feel free, but realize that if you do want to go to Lithuania to play, that may not be the choice at that point. Right. So just understanding the whole picture.
Right.
I think it's most important for all the athletes that are really focused on kind of that part of the social movements there.
Right. And so shifting slightly, but still talking about aspiring athletes and their brand, community involvement, especially, for pro players here in the States, is huge. It's a huge component of their brand, or a huge way to elevate their brand. Are you encouraging players overseas to get involved with nonprofit or charitable organizations in the countries in which they are? And what has been the reaction to that?
Absolutely. That is actually probably one of the biggest things that we really encourage,
right,
with our athletes. And I think it's, it's a big thing on having them understand the importance of really giving back in the communities in which they're playing in.
Right.
One of our athletes who was recently drafted to the Cook Islands, the Cook Islands team there, mm-hmm, in the Oceanic Basketball Association, their first draft, Jabril Wilson actually played in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And he actually, what he did was, it was great. He gave back. He would go back and give gifts and toys, right, and stuff to the children.
Right.
And they literally had cardboard cutouts of him where they could put their face inside and take pictures of it.
That's not creepy at all.
It's not at all. But it was crazy in the sense that that idea of him giving back, and because he wanted to really give something back to the community that really kind of taken him in, right, down there. And so it was great to see the way that the fans sort of gravitated to him.
Right.
And so that's one of the things, and it's just a great example of the reason why we tell them get involved. You want to make sure don't just stay in, don't go to the practice, don't go to the game and then go home.
Right.
Make sure that you're out and about and you're engaged.
Right.
Because it's a great way to actually get involved and understand what the people are looking for. And then what happens is they bring more people out.
Right.
Team's going to want you back.
Right.
They're probably going to give you a little bit more money.
Right.
I think those are things that all play a factor.
Right.
And so we actually just ran a campaign with a very innovative tech company that's just starting out, but it's actually a charitable organization that you can actually utilize it through a sort of crowdsourcing.
Right.
And we actually had Deja Maddox, one of our players there, who actually played in a celebrity game and was supporting a cause against women that had been sexually trafficked.
Right.
And so it was a great way to bring attention to the issue. Right. Because it was important to her.
Right.
But then it was also fun for the fans to interact with her.
Right.
In that manner as well. So I think it was those type of ways in which we encourage the athletes to really get involved and especially work with the communities in which they're playing in.
Right. So with all of your players being overseas, it's challenging for them to maintain brand equity back here in the States. Mm-hmm. And if they want to go to the next level in their sport, whether it's NBA or soccer or whatever the case may be, they have to keep a strong foothold in their brand here in the States. Sure. Is there any advice that you've given them in the past and has seen success for them to kind of keep the fires burning here back in the States when they're overseas?
Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing for us is to make sure that they're still engaged with their fan base that's here. And even if it causes for us to reach out to the group, and especially areas in which they're from, which is huge, because those are the main people that are going to really sort of pay attention. They're going to spread the word about them. And so if an athlete is from Indianapolis, then we want to make sure that your people in Indianapolis are still very much engaged in what you're doing in Spain or what you're doing in China. And so that way it sort of prepares you so that when you go back, you can certainly have different events and allow yourself to be doing different different clinics, which a lot of our athletes have actually done. A couple of our players have come back and they've done clinics and so forth. So it allows them to still maintain that connection.
Right.
And then also, have them pay attention to what's going on. With international sports. So.
Right.
Yeah, it keeps them going outside of working with Firestarter, of course.
Well, of course. All right, stick right there. When we get back, we're going to take another break. When we get back, we're going to talk about some of the fun aspects of social media. And even though he's not on it, I'm sure he pays attention to it. So we're going to dig into a little bit of that. So hold tight. We'll be right back. And welcome back. It's good to see ya. If you want to talk to us, you can do so on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio and on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. So let's talk personally about some of your thoughts of things that are happening out there on the Internet of Things.
Okay.
Whose brand right now, whose personal brand, besides mine, of course, whose
Yes.
personal brand is giving you life? Like, who is someone that you follow, that you're interested in,
Oh,
that you're
man.
interested in what they're doing and kind of the brand that they have built?
Dang. Okay. That's
This
tough.
isn't a pop quiz. You got these questions in advance.
I know. Oh my gosh. I still needed to think about it though. I don't know. Cardi B.
Why? Why?
'Cause she's hot right now, right? I think that's. I mean, she's
eyes roll back into
doing
my
her
head.
thing. She's yeah. I mean, she went from one area, transitioned very well to the number 3 album in the country. So I think that's pretty.
She's making
that's-
money moves.
That's pretty hot. There you go. See?
I can like personally, I cannot stand her. Like, I like the music, but her when she gives interviews, I'm like, please, someone needs to get
It's
a
that
hold
around
of you.
the way girl. Yeah, it's
Bamboo
fun.
earrings, at least 2 pair.
Takes me back.
Yes,
Takes me back.
I mean, yeah, I mean, she is an interesting figure. I just think that someone needs to get a hold of her and do a little refining and put a
Yeah.
shirt on her. Like, her boobs are never covered. Like, put a fucking shirt on. It drives me insane. Like, I mean, at the MTV Movie Awards, like, one false move and it was just like out there for everyone. She
Yeah,
was at Fashion Week. It was like one false move and out there. It's like, come on, we get it. We get it. You have boobs. Congratulations. Like, moving on.
That's how they all. That works for her.
Yes.
So it's working. It's
And working for
It's
you.
working for her very well.
And working for you.
I pay attention to folks that are doing well, so I can still different things and utilize it and
Right.
see how I can capitalize on all of it.
And what are you stealing from her?
Well, I mean, the way that she's able to transition from one area to another,
Right.
I think is the first thing. And so when you have majority of athletes, definitely half of them want to be some form of other entertainer.
Rapper, yeah.
So
Always.
at the end of the day, and even whether it's want to be a model,
Right.
You know, there's certain ways in which they can do the transition. and
Right.
You pay attention to ways in which they can do that. Deja Maddox, one of our athletes, is a fantastic opportunity to kind of show that
Right.
she's a great, fantastic athlete, but she's also a good model.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's ways in which you can utilize those things.
Right. Absolutely. So what is, now, this might be hard for you to answer because you don't have a lot of frame of knowledge, but what is one social media trend that you wish would just stop?
Ooh, yeah, you're right. I would not have a frame of reference for it. So I don't know. I probably have to ask people. What does everyone else think about?
On this show, week after week after week, dick pics is the number one answer.
Okay,
That's the number one
yeah,
answer.
Yeah, I'd probably say that's not a good look either.
Week after week,
I'd prob-
consistently, Travis Thomas, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, like literally went on a tirade about why guys are sending dick pics.
They do that on social media?
Yes, I get dick pics on LinkedIn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody was saying, like, I don't know if it was on the show or whatever. Oh, no, my friend Pamela was saying to me the other night that people are now airdropping dick pics, like, on the metro and on the subway.
Whoa.
It's like, that's aggressive.
Isn't that illegal?
It's not illegal. I mean, it's intrusive, but it's not illegal. So, yeah, on this show, week
Yeah.
after week, consistently.
Yeah, I could probably
dick
agree with
pics.
that one.
Yeah.
I
Hashtag blessed
probably
is the other one that
I would-
people are over.
Yeah, that's probably a little too much.
It's disingenuous
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It went from being something that was good and great and
Yeah.
and interesting.
A great
and
part
now-
of a song,
Right.
and that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think most of the time when people are hashtag blessed, they're hashtag bragging.
Yeah,
And,
right.
And I'm kind of over it. It's my pet peeve. It's my pet peeve.
If
so,
you're hashtag blessed, are you really blessed?
I
don't know.
mean, I think that if you
does that
wake up
work?
in the morning and you're above ground, you are blessed.
Then there you go.
And
It doesn't
but-
have to have a hashtag.
It doesn't have to have a hashtag. It definitely does not need a hashtag. There's a lot of things, and I'll even admit this, that do not need a hashtag. Hashtag good times. Like,
Yeah,
we get
if
it. You're
you're-
having a good time. We get it. We get it.
That is true. There's no hashtag.
Yeah,
right.
hashtag blessed bothers me. I'm even getting tired of pray emoji hands.
The pray-
Like, I'm over that. That's another thing.
Or
that
the
can-
100.
Yeah,
I've seen that one.
the 100 but it's dying out. It's dying out. I see it less now than I did like a couple of months ago.
Okay.
It's dying
All right.
out. But the pray hands are a huge one, and I have to admit I sent out a tweet last night praying for the people in Puerto Rico and Mexico, and I
Yes,
did
absolutely.
But I was speaking in Spanish. I wanted to relate to my audience, so I used pray hands because
Okay.
it doesn't have a rosary. So
Yeah.
there's not a rosary emoji, so I didn't have that. But hashtag blessed is my number one pet peeve. It drives me insane. But on this show, dick pics is the number one thing that people don't like.
Yeah, I probably agree.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't-
not nice.
I mean, I've never
you're
got
not
them.
getting dick pics.
I'm not getting them,
Yeah.
but I'm sure people that are probably annoyed at this point. Yes.
My dad loves when we talk about dick pics on the show. He thinks it's hilarious.
I hope my mother's not watching this.
I hope not either. This is not
She
the show
probably
for
is,
her.
actually.
This is
She
not
just-
the show. So what athlete or celebrity is producing the best content right now? Who do you think is really producing, and that can be your client or not your client?
Besides
but
Cardi B?
besides Cardi B,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Like,
Okay. All right. You know who I think is producing the greatest content are a few of the athletes on GSM are producing great content. Deja Maddox has great content. Tyler Thornton has great content. Check it out. Khalil McDonald.
well, he has
Interesting
He has
content.
great content. If I don't say so myself.
It's great content. There you go. I think there's some George Armstrong, one of our first soccer signees. Great content.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's GSM, and of course we have folks that are actually guiding our athletes well. So
right.
I think we're doing some pretty good stuff.
And so if you want to follow any of these great athletes and their brands, you can go to Global Sports Management on Instagram and Twitter and find these athletes and connect with them. Please do.
Absolutely.
Any amount of audience following that they can get, both
Definitely.
in and out of their sport, is always a good thing.
Always.
Mr. Anthony, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. I
We are
appreciate
running
it.
out of time today. Before I go, I want to thank our sponsors, Columbia Lighthouse for the Blind and Co-Create. Thank you very much for all your money and your time and your support. Joining me next week is our Back to School edition, where I will have teacher and author Glenn Morning on the show, which will be a lot of fun, him talking about his new book. Can't wait to hear all about that. And he is a new friend, so it'll be a first time hanging out with Mr. Morning. Very excited
Nice.
about that. So check us out on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal and on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio. I am Frances Reimers. Thank you for joining. Good night.